In a world where information seems to travel at the speed of light and traffic at a snail's pace, where the agenda of those at the helm doesn't always reflect the pressures on the streets, where the rubber hits the road, where there's queue of issues needing to be interrogated in the name of speaking truth to power.
Welcome to a place at the table,
where we set the agenda,
table the issues that matter to you,
and invite you to take a seat at the table. Welcome to a place at the table. I will ask you this: what must we do if we do not want history to repeat itself? You guessed it. I will be speaking on activating the future.
Yes, indeed, Ande, we must move from potential to productivity. Funny, this mirrors my thoughts as I traversed one of the most fertile arable lands in Nigeria. I'm talking about Osun State.
There is a positive vibe in the air. I'll key into it. Let's talk redeeming the time, not whiling it away on social media.
That's an interesting one, Elsie. I'm speaking on protecting and investing in our National Youth Service Corpus. Hashtag from potential to productivity, investing in our future. Welcome, Aproko Doctor.
Thanks, Zumah. Well, you've heard it, from potential to productivity and also investing in our future. But I'll add to that, from hashtags to healing. Why does it feel like this conversation have me tapped from the get-go?
Welcome here.
Well, that's because you're in the right place at the right time, at the table, where we take on the issues that matter. So sit tight. Today I'm asking questions. The future, when does this begin? Ibrahim Babangida, former president of Nigeria, concluded his well-written autobiography with a letter to the next generation. A part reads, "From my experience and observation, what unites our youth is the confidence that nothing is impossible. I call them the possibility generation. The old divisions of faith, ethnicity, and region have vastly receded and no longer divide our youth. They are united by the images on the screens of their cell phones and tablets. Their reality is not colored by faith, tongue, or ethnicity. They experience common problems: poverty, inadequate infrastructure, homelessness, hunger, want, and disease. These are, for them, the common enemies that must be conquered." IBB. I highlighted the above due to two other comments in Appendix 1, being IBB's maiden address to the nation, August 27, 1985. The present situation, where 44% of our revenue is used to service debts, is unrealistic. A phenomenon of constant insecurity and overbearing uncertainty has become characteristic of our national existence. These statements were made in 1985. The only change I see is from bad to worse. While everyone agrees generally that it's time for the youths, the quotes above, as well as the current state of affairs, demonstrate beyond doubt that the Nigerian political space needs massive infusion of a different breed. Perhaps it's time for some radical changes, where youth will put an age limit to persons they will vote into various offices, if the constitution will not be amended to accommodate this. Why do we have mandatory retirement age for career public servants, but none for politicians? We don't want to hear it is the same in other climes. Other climes do not have our problems and peculiarities. We seem to find it convenient to borrow ideas from other climes as excuses to justify absurdities. Other climes are not cited when gauging performances of public officials. How do we move from knowing it is time for the youth to actually changing the old guard, who seem to only know how to repeat history but never learn from it? As Herodotus said.
Interesting. Two things: insecurity and economic uncertainty. 1985. 30 what? 38
Okay.
years later, actually, and the issues still persist. You said we used to use 44% of our revenue to service debts. I think we've made.
Babangida said.
we've made some progress in that space. Now we use 26%.
Okay.
You know, not so bad. Not so bad. I am kind of like worried about the fact that despite the passing of the Not Too Young to Run bill in 2018, there is still no significant participation of youth at the national level. We've seen significant improvement at the state level because we used to have about 6% youth participation, and now we have about 29% as a 2023 election, with the youngest coming from Kwara, Rukayat Shitu, 26-year-old, as one of the state legislators in Kwara. I agree with the fact that we need to have a cap on the age for electoral office holders. But what cap would you suggest for that? I feel like the major barrier to youth participation in politics or in electoral offices beyond age, which has been lowered considerably, is finances. As far as we still keep participating in money politics, there will still be a huge gap in the youth participation in politics.
First thing first, we have to define what youth would be in this part of the world, right? UN says 15 to 24. African Youth Charter says 15 to 35. World Health says 10 to 24. But in this country, I think it's like maybe 15 to 60 or 70 something. Because I was listening to the news and I heard something about, so I think it was in news from Port Harcourt, and they said something about youth elders. And my question is, what does that mean? Like, what is youth elders? But away from that, I would say that the future belongs to not just the youths, but the youths that are willing, right? And I also want us to take our minds away from youth integration looking like a revolution or it being a one-off thing. It's going to be a gradual integration. It's not going to be replacing its collaboration. And I think from what Zumah has actually said, it's happening already. The young people that are interested in politics, that are interested in governance, and those that are beginning to wake up to understand that we actually need to be part of it are already there. They're doing what they can do. We want more people to join, but are we sitting to wait for it to look like one big revolution? No. Even, I mean, like you said, we like to borrow things, right? Even when you go to the United States or most other countries, we have very old people still in offices. The president of United States is not exactly a young man, right? Even in their assemblies or whatever they call it over there, there are so many young, old people there. There are also young people. So I think we should begin to look at it from something that should be collaboration, not outright replacement or revolution. They are not doing. The young people that are there, I always say this, what are they doing right now? Are they even representing us properly? Are they thinking of the future? IBB, I respect him. I mean, he's lived life, right? But can he honestly sit down today and say that the decisions he made when he was young, he's really proud about them?
That's a new one for me. What is youth elder? It's just, Nigeria is just youth elder. It's ringing in my head, you know, because I remember at some point we had a 70-something-year-old as youth leader of a political party, which tells you that Nigerians, until we the people make up our minds to speak to the political class and tell them this is what we want. That's number one. Number two, our youths. Somebody talked about not too young to run. The truth is that we have young people in the legislature now, but they blended in instead of standing out. So that makes mockery of this call for young people to be in governance. But look at what is happening. The elders, let me put them in quotes now, the elders are closing rank. We're hearing of state governors, entire cabinets moving from one party to the other. This is just 2025. Yeah. Where is the coalition for the youth? Where is the coalition for the women? So you see, it is we the people who are unprepared, continually unprepared for governance because we do not plan ahead. You see these people, they're planning already. What do I mean by these people? The political class, they're already closing ranks. They're planning ahead. But we are there, we're talking. We're complaining on social media.
Aproko Doctor, any prescriptions?
I think there are many faces in order to look at this. You know, we've spoken about the not too young to run, spoken about the age, but I believe that there is a major part that has been neglected in all of this conversation, and it's systems. Look, there were a couple of economists that wrote a book to explain why the quote-unquote, the countries who had a lot of resources remain poor, while the countries who seem to not have these resources are wealthy and are continually growing. It's simply because the countries who are rich have systems that the people can trust in. I know that if I take you to a court of law, justice will be done, irrespective of who's there. And so we have systems that do not respect people. But it looks like when you come to climes like ours, the conversation is different. So you have systems that are built around people. People can tweak the systems to fit whatever they want it to fit. And the people no longer, and by people I mean you and I, no longer believe in these systems. And so what it does is that it just reduces the verve for calling out for a revolution, because the next thing people will now say is, at the end of the day, they win. Because we have not built systems. And the question now remains, who is responsible for building the systems?
I mean, youth, definition of youth is contextual with social norms, but I think there are some parts that allows for common sense, and that is what you are saying when you say a 70-year-old saying he's a youth leader, you know? It's absurd. Now, we're talking of a situation whereby the mass will be young and vibrant people that can put the kind of ideas and systems in place that Aproko Doctor is talking about. Not where we have people scattered. And those ones that are scattered, Zumah touched on it about money politics. Go and look at who their parents are. Most of them were put there by the old guard.
You asked a question, Aproko Doctor, who should be building the systems?
So building system takes vision.
Exactly.
Do we have the vision of where we even, forget about Africa, Nigeria, where we want to see Nigeria in the next 10 years or 15 years?
The vision of the leadership is dim. They are too old. The vision is dim. Yeah.
What is the Nigerian identity? So we need to start from the identity, then we'll now move on to the vision, and then we'll now look at how do we achieve the said vision.
So now we also talked about mentorship. How do we, are they grooming new people? Are they grooming succession planning?
For our conversations to move us forward, for these conversations to create the kind of changes we want to see, surely we ought to be setting out a roadmap to a brighter future, or we'll simply be talking.
Speaking of roadmap, come with me on a road trip to a place where the land is green. This weekend, I traveled to one of the most fertile arable lands in Nigeria, Osun State. Whether I take the lonely Iwo Road entry point or the pothole-riddled Ife-Ibadan Expressway, I marvel at the endlessly green vegetation on both sides of the road. This time I journeyed through the Ife-Ibadan Expressway. 3 towns piqued my interest: Ede, Shekono, and Ikire. At Ede, we passed by the old Timi of Ede's palace. Disappointing. I mean, can it not be turned into a museum? Illustrious sons and daughters of the town can actually do better. And right after Shekono, by Elewure Palace, I met with Tawa, who sold palm oil. I haggled a 5-liter keg of palm oil to 8,000 naira, but I was still reluctant to buy. Thankfully, she didn't blame it on the dollar. Rather, she said to me, "This is unadulterated palm oil, and my echo is behind here." Really, an echo by the express. Images of a younger me watching how palm oil is made and running little errands for grandma floated to me. Tawa's enterprise fascinated me. Production point is less than a meter away. Sales point is unsophisticated, yet strategic. The cost of doing business is low. She's most likely not paying rent. Absolutely no stress. And payment was cashless, no POS. Tawa lives a better quality of life than many city dwellers. Tawa's Nigeria is certainly not the same with mine. I thought of how the Osun State government could stem migration out of the state by empowering businesses like Tawa's. At Ikire, the town famous for the Dodo Ikire snack, I was curious to see how Dodo Ikire is made and why the town is synonymous with the delicacy. Luckily, my guide is from Ikire, and the woman we met inherited the trade from her grandma. There is no factory at Ikire for the export of Dodo Ikire. However, an Ikire indigene, Iya Ede, runs a Dodo Ikire factory at Ede for export. Osun State has immense potential for export. If only the state will look inwards and stop depending on federal allocations.
It's good you ended with federal allocations because that's what I was just about to say. Now, why can't we have cottage industries that add value
Thank you.
to perishable products? All we keep hearing is electricity. Can states not generate their own electricity? Most states in this country are bigger than many countries we hear about.
That's right.
Let's take Rwanda. I was in Rwanda last month. Why can't each state governor say, I will make my state like Rwanda, for example, without relying on the federal government?
Vision.
Let's give them kudos.
Yes, Abia State is generating its own electricity. Lagos State is about working on that.
Yeah, I could see the progress in Abia State, but it's nowhere near Rwanda. But yes,
I mean, but where did you start, really? But I'm not just
Abia?
Become Rwanda. Of course, I am from Abia.
But they're trying. Zuma.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm just impressed with the fact that you know how to make palm oil.
Oh yeah, I mean, I recorded that in my first book, Memories of Grandma. I wrote about it because I used to watch my grandma, my maternal grandma, make it. Yes.
How was your trip to Osun?
It was really good, but for the potholes. I mean, I wondered, I said to myself, is this where the Oni of Ife passes by all the time? Because it's very mobile. And that road is really pathetic.
Yeah.
It is.
Osun used to be one of my favorite states to do road trips to a couple of years back, but in recent times, maybe due to the insecurity situation, as well as the potholes, like you mentioned, it's become quite unattractive. And Osun is very blessed. It is strategically positioned in the heart of the southwest. The weather is amazing for most cash crops: cocoa, cashew, palm oil. I don't know why the state is not is not doing more to retain the youth in the states. If you see an average Osun person, the moment they are done with secondary school, they don't even want to do uni in the states. The ones who accidentally do uni in the state, they want to come to Lagos to do one or two things. You know what? If the government start investing more in the agricultural value chain and start incentivizing corporations to come and domicile manufacturing, processing industries in that space, to do a whole lot more to help them retain the youth in the states and reduce rural to urban migration. And considering the fact that they have more than 90,000 hectares of arable land.
Right.
900,000 actually. It is unbelievable.
It is
unbelievable.
Vast, fertile land.
Zuma, you have just described the situation in every state.
No,
what you described.
Lagos does not have, no, it's not the same.
Lagos doesn't have that kind of vegetation.
Abuja does not have the same thing.
No, you get the point. Those are destination places where everybody from all the states.
So what you are describing, it's not saying you're wrong. It's what you're describing is a major problem in Nigeria in most states. Not, I mean,
people are accessing their resources and the people moving out. And Osun has gold.
They have gold, and then they are doing a lot of gold mining. Even though a lot of them are illegal. Yeah.
And Osun State is the second largest exporter of cocoa.
Yeah, they do more than 50,000 tons annually
in Nigeria. So you can see it's an agricultural base in the southwest. But let me pause there and come to Aproko Doctor.
We have been describing the unfair advantages of Osun State, right? But if we look at it in the private sector, when a board of directors come together and hire a CEO, if I'm correct, the CEO has one goal. It could be increase the profitability of this company or whatever it is. You know, there's a reason you were hired. How come when it still boils down to the same conversation that we're having? Because when it comes to politics, our systems are, there's no KPI. You just come in, there's no vision, there's nothing.
If you don't give us at the end of the 4 years, there's nothing we can do.
Exactly. There is no accountability.
Roads.
Even the roads. How many of the roads in the state capital go to the place that should be linking the farmers to where they should get some market? You will now see that road we are seeing is only in the state capital.
Exactly, because if the leadership were thinking like CEOs, you would harness every advantage you have as a state.
Absolutely.
But we're not doing that. We have politics that are centered around the personal,
personality of the CEO or the governor,
rather than the people.
We need people like you to
But
run.
we also need to remember that the aim of government is not is a non-profit. It's
I
not
agree.
to make profit.
I agree.
It is to provide services.
Provide services,
And
improve the
The quality
environment
of life,
business.
yeah.
Those should be the
The Rwanda
KPIs
I
in which
mentioned, business is driving the country, but the government has created an enabling environment. As a foreigner, I could own 100% of my company at zero cost, registering that company. All I had to do was pay my lawyers. That's telling investors, please come.
And are you sure Rwanda they haven't paid you for your Rwanda so many times? I'm tempted to go and set up in Rwanda too.
So speaking about Rwanda that you mentioned, since you brought it up, right, and taking it back to KPI, Rwanda is a state that I've visited about 3 times, right? I mean, a country rather, I've visited about 3 times, largely in Kigali and other parts of it. It's a place where if I want to meet any minister of Rwanda, I will meet the minister.
Exactly.
Because as you are chasing them, they are chasing you.
Yes,
There is
Yes.
a clear target. They know what they want to meet. So when they meet you and know that there is value, they look for you. Here, please tell me the minister that anybody on this table now will even have a reasonable proposal to give to, and you have access to that
Minister, let's start with
just saying.
commissioner,
Right, so
or even senior
starting from there, you
special
realize that you already
advisor
have
or
a system
assistant.
and a structure that ensures that when you get into office, you know that you are there to deliver, not there to just make money or make name or whatever it is. But I like to say that Nigeria is a blessed country.
It is.
Nigeria is absolutely a blessed country. And that is why I say when we're talking about Nigeria, Nigeria is not Lagos. And I like that you are doing these trips. I love traveling and documenting it for us and bringing out lessons, right? I remember going to Adoyawaye, where you have the suspended lake.
Yeah.
When I got there, I saw everything. I saw the journey. The road wasn't as bad at the time, but I don't know what it is right now. And in my head, I'm always thinking about the opportunities we have when it even comes to the tourism industry in Nigeria. How no one is paying attention to that. Like for every state in Nigeria, they can independently say, this is what we are projecting. I'm just hoping that one day would have as much as we like to say, it's not just the president, right? We'll have someone who, your leadership, maybe you just pick 1 to 5 and tell us, this is what your agenda, this is what you're going to change. And then it can then trickle down. Let the next person come and say, I'm focusing on education. Education, as we know it, is not a short-term deal. It's a long-term project. It's something that you begin to see the value from 10 years. But because it's not something that you will see on paper and say, in line with the renewed hope, and then they see it immediately manifesting. You see a lot of politicians are not interested in education.
I quite agree with the whole Nigeria is blessed scenario. I feel it's just our way of putting our head in the grass. Because hope is not a strategy. We keep saying Nigeria is blessed, Nigeria is blessed. We need to have realistic data in order to make certain decisions. But before you make those decisions, where is the data? It shows you that the people who are even responsible for these things are not interested in collecting data that actually matter.
That is a totally different conversation. If we start the data conversation,
the data conversation does not negate the fact that Nigeria is blessed. What you then do with that blessing, it's just like when you go to church every day and say, God, give me a job, and you don't send your CV anywhere. Right? God has blessed you. So it's what you do with the talent and skills and resources around you that will determine the kind of life you will live. Right? So Nigeria, it's not a question of whether Nigeria is blessed or not. It is. But what are you people doing with the blessings?
If we continue this way, we might not be blessed anytime soon. No, let's
Idleness is the excuse of those who lack vision and perhaps stamina. Otherwise, it's just laziness, an enemy of productivity and progress.
To make things worse, Funke, where our idleness is unintentional, not a holiday, but unconscious, we have ourselves to blame. It starts with good intentions, just a quick scroll through Instagram while waiting for a meeting to start, or checking the latest gist during a lunch break. Before you know it, 30 minutes have slipped away and you're knee-deep in trending hashtags and hot takes. Social media has become an integral part of our daily lives. It connects, informs, entertains, and even creates opportunities. However, between the value it offers lies a subtle, growing challenge: unconscious consumption. And what it often consumes most is our time, our energy, and our ability to think clearly. What's more concerning is the new wave of gist chasing. People are now so drawn into trending stories. Who is dating who? Who broke up? Who's getting married? That it becomes a daily ritual. Running from one block to another for the latest tea, then analyzing it for hours with friends, family, colleagues, even strangers online. If you're keeping up with every single gist, and it's not because you are monetizing your presence or paid to stay up to date, it's time to check it. This is why I do not recommend that business owners, department heads, or founders take on the role of social media manager for their businesses. If you can afford it, hire someone to handle that. You're better off reading a book, networking, or doing what you should be doing, which is thinking critically, solving problems, and strategizing for growth. Whether you're an entrepreneur trying to scale a business, a student managing deadlines, or a professional juggling tasks, social media silent pool can derail your focus. What makes it tricky is the fact that the impact isn't always immediate. It accumulates, lost momentum, delayed execution, scattered thoughts. This isn't a call to quit social media. The goal is to raise awareness and promote the intentional use of these resources. Turn off unnecessary notifications, schedule your scroll time, be present for the work that truly matters. We're not just losing time to social media, we're losing momentum, creativity, and sometimes direction. But the power to take it all back is still in your hands.
When it comes to social media, I believe that it's something that has given us a lot, but also taken a whole lot from us. A lot of people struggle with attention span, focus, and deep work.
Just to add, it's not just Gen Z, this is Gen Z, baby boomers.
Our mothers, you see,
all of them,
you see our mothers.
That's why this advocacy was important.
Have you seen this TikTok video? Mama, I am not on TikTok. I don't use, I am very intentional about my social media usage. I'm very big on digital well-being. I have limits on all the social media apps I use. And then the moment the limit is up, someone sends me a reel, I've exhausted my Instagram usage for the day. We'll pick it up tomorrow. You know, a lot of people struggle with self-regulation. And that thing, it is very consuming. I tell people you need to define your social media use case. It's a tool. You need to decide how you want to use it, and not, you are either the product or you're selling a product. When people say, oh, do you know this person got married? I'm sorry, I don't consume social media. I post my bits and I'm out, except you are like the first of 5 people on my feed. That's it. I don't see other people's content. You know, so it's important to define your use case. Are you using it for recreation? How much time do you want to use it for recreation for? Is it an hour daily? Is it 30 minutes daily? The same way we regulate our children's digital well-being, we need to be intentional about regulating our own. Are you using it for visibility? So what is your visibility strategy? You can't just go on and just be posting. You know, we know what Aproko Doctor does on social media. You hardly see him post content outside his niche.
I think I need to come to Aproko Doctor on this one.
I'm so glad. Because whether we like it, baby boomer, Gen Z, Gen X, Gen Alpha, everybody, nobody is immune to biology. Now, if you realize the way these platforms have been designed, they've been designed to keep you on them. And so that's why currently it used to be, the whole narrative used to be connects you to one another. So it started with I'm connecting you to your old school friends, I'm connecting you to people who have been lost in your path. And then the content creator economy came up and there was so much viral content that whether or not you're following a person, if you spend enough time on social media, you're going to see that content pop up. And then you look, you're like, I'm not following this person. Why is he here? That's also because these platforms have been designed to trigger a pathway in your brain that releases dopamine. And this dopamine is the same thing that drives people to take drugs, for instance. And that's why they say dopamine is addictive. So it takes a combination of self-awareness, self-regulation, discipline, and systems. Because if you do all these things but you don't have a system, Zumah mentioned something about, you know, ensuring that you have a daily timer on your phone where once you've exhausted your 15 or your 30 minutes, that's it. You get locked out. But then again, people do it and then go ahead and continue. They say, just give me extra 5 minutes, just give me extra 10 minutes. And that shows you, yes, it shows you the addictive nature of these things. So yes, that's giving us a lot. But if you don't regulate it, it's really going to reduce the quality of your life, especially if that's where you spend your time on.
Well, I like the phrases in your monologue: unconscious consumption, gist chasing. I like Zumah's self-regulation. If you're not selling products or you're not buying products, then, you know. And I mean, Aproko Doctor is a systems guy today at the table. And I love your take on it. It reminds me of Bright's take all the time. It's the way the algorithm for Nigeria, perhaps for Africa, has been designed. It makes things pop up. But then we're talking addiction now. This is what I have done. I have two forms. One, everybody has access to that. And you get, you know, placed on WhatsApp groups without your consent and all of those, you know, so you have a lot of people there looking for your attention and all. So I turn off that data on that one. I only come up at particular times of the day. It works for me perfectly. My other phones, I have less than 20 people on it, and that's the one that is always on because I have time to do other things. I have a social media manager, so I don't have to be there 24 hours. I regulate my time. It's blissful. You won't find me on Twitter. I just go there occasionally. I have my preferred social media platforms. That's where you find me. Probably not find me on Instagram all the time. I only visit. My preferred is actually WhatsApp, Facebook, LinkedIn is #1 for me. And I don't care how many followers you have, whether when I post, I have only 2 likes, because that's where the addiction comes. You crave the likes. You crave it. And when you have 2 likes or 5 likes, you're like, I'm not popular. I mean, look at what, okay, that's another conversation for another day. How we literally don't have a distribution channel, marketing channel for a lot of our creatives. So you find people dancing up and down, going to skit makers. I mean, you find a Richard Mufedamijo with Kiki and, you know, what's that one that is always, you know, so you see, you get hooked onto stuff like that. And before you know it, 2 hours gone.
I don't know who made this quote, but I had to look for it when I saw your advocacy. He said, never has a generation so diligently documented themselves accomplishing so little. Right? Who is dating who, as you said, what you had for breakfast, you know? So
that
like
is profound.
You know, what you had for breakfast, I'm flying to Lagos.
Outfits of the day.
You know, so stuff like that, you know. But again, for businesses, it's a bit dicey, you know. You recommended that CEOs have
social media
handlers. Definitely they should, but they also need to have some savvy, so they need to also monitor the trends, you know, because I have a blog, people don't read. I distribute to over 2,000 people. I see the analysis, 11 views, 2 reads. Do you get? And these are 3 to 5 minutes reads. So if a CEO now wants to focus on those things he was reading in books and stuff like that, it might not really work. But I agree with you that yes. So just to find that balance. First between personal use and then between professional use.
Absolutely. By the way, your blog is competing with 5 things to do in Thailand. That one takes 2-3 minutes, and that one looks more interesting than your blog that we have to, you know, use our brain to participate.
Casting headlines also helps.
Yes, I mean, a thief can only steal from us if we are unaware. You have been alerted, so no need crying ole after today.
Oh, girl. They say a word is enough for the wise. Perhaps because the definition of wisdom includes applied knowledge. The National Youth Service Corps, NYSC, established in 1973, remains a cornerstone of Nigeria's efforts to foster national unity, promote cultural integration, and deploy young graduates to contribute to nation building, while equipping them with the skills needed to thrive in the workplace. However, in light of contemporary challenges, the NYSC scheme urgently needs to be reformed to prioritize Corps members' safety, as recurring incidents show that Corps members are often deployed to remote and volatile regions without adequate security, exposing them to risks such as kidnapping, banditry, communal clashes, and road accidents. For NYSC to fulfill its safety obligation to corps members, they must conduct thorough risk assessments before deploying corps members to any region. Areas with high insecurity should be excluded from deployment until safety is guaranteed. They must mandate every local government to have a decent and secure corpers lodge, as many corps members are posted to locations without secure accommodation, forcing them to live in unsafe environments and exposing them to different risks. They must establish a dedicated 24/7 helpline and rapid response team to address distress calls from corps members. They also need to include safety training during orientation camps to equip corps members with the skills needed to navigate emergencies. They must provide comprehensive health and life insurance for all corps members to cover medical emergencies, accidents, or fatalities. Families of corps members who lose their lives during service should receive prompt and adequate compensation as they died in the service of their nation and should be honored and compensated as such. The NYSC remains a vital institution for fostering national unity and youth development, but its continued relevance depends on its ability to adapt to modern realities. Prioritizing corps member safety is not just an administrative adjustment, but a moral imperative to protect Nigeria's young graduates. By implementing these reforms, the NYSC can restore confidence in the scheme, ensure the well-being of corps members, and uphold its mandate of building a stronger, more united Nigeria. Let us ensure that no corps member's life is needlessly endangered.
Zumah, I don't know, your advocacy could have come at a better time. The NYSC for me is something I take very personal. I recall during my NYSC, even though it's been watered down now, the sense of patriotism when they were singing the national anthem and the NYSC anthem, it used to bring tears to my eyes. The old national anthem, not this one. I don't know what this one is.
This is the old anthem.
No. What I mean is the national anthem, Arise, O Compatriots. Yeah. That's what I mean, right? Now, I tell you that sometimes these leaders is not like they don't know what to do. The NYSC is such, it's like it's a problem, but it has its own solution. Very easy. Now, when they needed party agents everywhere, we can use corpers. We have insecurity everywhere. Why can't we have a military wing of these corps members? In some countries, you have mandatory military service for all. For this one, we can do Israel, Norway, Turkey, South Korea. Okay? Here we can say, okay, something like the civil defense model. Okay, not everybody must be armed, but we have squads within each state that are armed and trained in military service. So these are corpers protecting. When I hear of how they've been harassed during elections, how they've been killed needlessly, why can't we do that? We say we don't have enough boots on the ground. Now, these ones are graduates that have not even been corrupted. They are still ideological. These are the people who should have a way of arming and bringing into our security architectures.
Your advocacy is well thought out and, well laid out. If it's enough to just say, just read what she has said and go and implement, right? Because, again, it's not rocket science. These are things that need to be done and put in place. For me, fortunately and unfortunately, I did not serve.
Really?
I'm not going to serve. I don't have to. I have the, what they call it, exemption certificate. So it's okay for me. But I remember what it used to be. I have cousins, I have brothers and sisters that have done this, and the pride, even when they have to then go back to their homes and then they're wearing their uniform, and how even the drivers, the buses, you remember when we used to travel to the east with the bus and you see them on the road, the buses will stop to pick them up
at no cost.
At no cost, right? There was this sense of pride, sense of respect for them and for even us seeing them as corps members, right? But right now, I don't think much of that is happening anymore. And it's understandable because a lot of things are just falling by the line and nobody's picking it up. Everything you listed, it's not rocket science. You've done your job, you've put it out there. But for them, while you were reading, in my head, I feel like the way they think and what they have, what we perceive from them, they would rather scrap this initiative than going through the process of doing this work that is required to maintain the unity that it brings to the table. I love the idea of what NY is supposed to stand for. I think a lot of people are not against it. What they're against is the danger that is then bringing to our young ones, our children that are going for this. I mean, if I know that you are sending my child to a place that is not secure, why will I support it because I want to hail Nigeria to rise again? It's not going to happen. I want my child to be alive before Nigeria will decide to rise again or not.
Quite agree with your advocacy, and it's very important that we have voices like yours still sounding a clarion call. You know, the right thing should be done, the right thing must be done. I got to experience other parts of Nigeria, and that improved my perspective about the country simply with NYSC. I probably would never have had that opportunity. What is taking me to Wailo, for instance? You know,
To where?
Wailo.
Where's
that?
I think it's Borno.
Right.
Yeah, so, you know, what would have taken me to that state? How would I have experienced the journey? How would I have interacted with the, you know, the people living in those communities and even foster certain ideas that might never have happened if you were isolated where you grew up, where you were born, where you went to school, and that's it. So I feel that there is so much opportunity. It's just we need to demand better accountability for people. They can just say, it keeps coming back to KPIs. if
DG has zero fatalities as part of the KPI, you will ensure better safety of core members.
But they're not being graded on this. And there seems to be no repercussion for even doing a horrible job. As a matter of fact, this seems to be the only country where if you do a very bad job,
You get
rewarded
rewarded.
with a better position. You know, it never happens in any country in the world except here.
Other clients.
Sinner clients. You know, I've exhausted myself in the past talking about why the NYSC should be scrapped, because left for me, it should be scrapped. And I have my reasons. I served in Abia State a long time ago, in 1998 or so, you know, and it's much different. I mean, you can see the quality has deteriorated. The respect. But I'd like to add, even the kids, you look at the youth corps members now, you've seen the belt is this way, the boot is that way. And it just, I don't know why we still have it.
The discipline is lost.
It's not there, you know, like it used to be. And I'm not talking too much. I'm just going to pick two things that you talked about that I think if the minders of the NYSC are listening, they should pick on. One is 24/7 helpline. The other is comprehensive health and life insurance. I can't imagine grooming my child from, you know, nursery to graduation time, and then she goes to serve and you
catches typhoid.
Like she passes on from there because you've taken her to one village, a riverine area, she can't even swim. And you take her there and she loses her life in the river while trying to take ballot boxes to some election point. I think it's wrong. It's really wrong to make our children go through all that in the name of serving the nation. What has the nation invested in them? Is it the 2-week, 1 month stay at the orientation camp that prepares them to be on water or prepares them to be in conflict areas like Zamfara?
We're not even talking about the state of those homes or where they keep them for that 2 weeks.
Or that they arrive in one bush.
Let's not.
We need to go there.
Let us. I remember my living conditions, and they were
The living
horrible.
condition is terrible. Why do I have to go through that because I'm serving my country?
When I was like, I wanted to bath, they were like, this, you will have to wake up early in the morning to bath outside.
So that's why I say, fortunately, I did not serve.
Life, bath out. And then I was like, okay, let me even try. I woke up at 4 a.m. to bath. I saw men bathing on this side and women bathing on this side. Like, you could literally see one another.
Yes.
And I'm like, what's going on here?
I'm serving your country, you're serving your
And in spite of the challenges that NYSC have, a lot of people have good things to say about it. That's like the only work experience.
I do.
Some people have, and it prepares them not just for their own personal businesses, also prepares them for the workspace, whatever it is they decide to do.
I mean, the diversity is great.
Absolutely.
Yes, and it exposes you to other cultures and other way of living that you typically wouldn't have been if you hadn't gotten to experience it. I'm a passionate advocate for reforms. It may be because I see what massive gains could be made if we just put certain thoughts to action.
I know what you mean, Zumah. I hope my reformation journey actually gives you some encouragement. It all started with one patient. They had come back to the hospital in a worse condition because they misunderstood a simple instruction. And that moment broke me. But at the same time, it also birthed something in me. I realized the problem wasn't just access to doctors. It was access to understandable health information. And so I took to social media, not just as a medical expert in a lab coat, but as a friend who could break it down in simpler English and pidgin with humor and with context. And that's how Aproko Doctor was born. From one tweet to one video, we've built a community of over 10 million people and growing. But beyond the numbers are the platforms. There's where we celebrate healthy living and remind ourselves that health isn't just something we treat, it is something we live. Through our non-profit, the 100K Club, we've raised millions of naira for medical bills, screened thousands of women for cervical cancer, and even powered hospitals with solar energy. From Nigeria to social media timelines, the mission is the same: to make healthcare accessible, relatable, and human. Well, this journey has taught me that people don't just want doctors. They want understanding, truth, and hope. So when you ask how we went from hashtags to healing, it wasn't magic. It was community. It was you.
Well done, Aproko Doctor. What inspired the name?
It was more of a need to ensure that healthcare was something that people wanted to gravitate to, because this was at the time when social media was becoming a thing. As at the time when we started Aproko Doctor, it wasn't Aproko Doctor first. It was, it was something else I really can't remember. And so I started that conversation and I was prescribing, don't do this, don't do that.
Saying what is your own.
This is, and nobody paid attention, to be honest. When you post something, just like you mentioned, you were saying 2 likes. One of those likes was mine. I'll go and like it. And then come back, unlike it and like it again, just so that, it's able to get as much traction as possible. But then, rather than complain that, the people around me don't like me, I had to go back and look. What was my goal? My goal was to reach more people. Which kind of people? The people who necessarily did not have access to this information. And what were they watching? They were watching the funny guys, they were watching the guys with just love stories and all that. And that was how we tweaked it and tweaked it and tweaked it. And I realized that when you say doctor, people expect you in a lab coat, stethoscope around your neck, well-manicured English, But that was our perception until we changed it and we just started telling stories. And it stuck. We were like, okay, what do I call myself? It was between Aproko Doctor and Aproko Doctor. Okay. And recently I got to find out that Aproko Doctor was actually a lady's name.
Oh.
Yes. She was in one very popular show, sitcom that aired, in the early days, and her name was Amebo. And so people just added the name Amebo to mean somebody who talks
a lot.
But her name was Amebo.
Oh.
So I'm really grateful I didn't go for Amebo Doctor.
Oh. Interesting.
We decided to go for Aproko Doctor because it was eye-catching. It was something that would drag your attention, basically.
I like the way you pass on your message. It is very simple and straightforward, and it connects with the audience you're targeting. A large part of healthcare is preventive care.
Yeah.
We cannot maximize preventive care without effective communication. And the core of effective communication is understanding, which you have had. Well done, Aproko Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, for me, I will share one of the encounters I had with your content. So this friend of mine sent me something about tomatoes that you did. When you have tomatoes with the white growth on it, and say, I've told you, always managing things. See, Aproko Doctor has said what I've been telling you all the while. And that's just one. I remember again that somebody on social media said, well, since Aproko Doctor said this, my husband and I have been quarreling about why, the rightness and the wrongness of it.
So you're causing marital problems.
So you see, the drink water parts.
So you see, your content is engaging. It is about life.
Relatable.
As you said, it's about storytelling will always get the attention of people much more than data, statistics, and all of that. So I'm just going to tell you, well done on all that you do. I follow you a lot. in part, strategically. I like that you started the year with the challenge and it really caught on very well. Yesterday, I read someone on social media who's talking about liver detoxification. And I said to myself, oh, not many people know this. She was sharing her personal story on why she had to go that lane. And I said, you see, this is the thing about preventive health, which we don't have a lot of here. Imagine if we have an Aproko Doctor like 8, 10, 100 of them speaking these things into our consciousness, how better informed we will be. We'll probably spend more time doing more preventive health than buying Ashwebi as women. You know.
That's fired.
Shots fired.
That's fired.
And if you see a lot of our media stations, I've said to myself, and people will tell me, Funke, when are you going to have your own media station? And like, if I'm going to have, it's going to be on health. Okay. Because there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of people doing the same thing out there. Yeah. This station is general format, that one is general format. We need, just like traffic radio. Yeah. So we need a radio station, a TV station, you know, focusing on health.
I love that, by the way.
Yeah. Sure. So that's the way I feel about your content, and I think you should grow into that.
I'm really impressed by that, and I hope it comes to life. You just want to be sure that the people who are going to buy that idea see beyond the initial profit margins.
Yeah. Right.
Because healthcare is something that pays you in the future.
It's not fancy.
This 2025, it's been 10 years of us repeating the same message over and over again. It started in 2015. And so the same year, over and over and over and over, and kept hammering it until it's stuck. You know, and even now, we've realized that, there is another massive group that you're yet to reach out to. Mm-hmm. But the problem is you cannot build an entire industry on one person. Right. You have to create an avenue for other people to, take on the message. And that's also why we started the Aproko Doctor Academy, where we're now training health professionals to be able to communicate better. It's not just about, people are not impressed by the information in your head.
No,
nobody
it's the storytelling.
Cares. Yes, it's the storytelling. So you're training health professionals to become storytellers. And of course, not everybody can do it.
Amazing.
I grew up in a generation, and I'm very grateful that I experienced that generation. I grew up in a generation that we grew up to content online that could educate, content on TV, rather, that could educate us. You watched the TV station, and you left and you had information in your head, but it didn't come in the form of information, it came in the form of a story. Right now, you have kids who have access to their parents' phones and they're exposed to adult education. So we needed to bridge that gap, and for us, it was with healthcare. So we're still battling with the skit makers, the content creators for attention, the people who just want to go viral, the bloggers who just wake up, cook up one story, share it online, get
and people
trends,
run there.
And it takes partnership to be able to do this thing. But the people you're going to partner with have to have that same mindset that, look, we're looking just beyond the initial gains. For example, if you look at NCDs are non-communicable diseases, hypertension, diabetes, metabolic diseases, and they're really wreaking havoc, especially on the older generation. Sometimes even on the younger ones. You have younger people who are in their 30s
diabetes,
with hypertension, and a lot of these things can be prevented.
Now you are geeking out.
So, I like the work that you, of course, and them. I've also seen other doctors that have taken social media to do what is happening, and that ecosystem, you guys are just amazing. What you're doing is breaking down healthcare, right? And we are eternally grateful for that. But I want to speak on, you said something about health is for living. That's very important. Yeah. It's what you do from here, not what happens when you get into the hospital, right? Mm-hmm. I also like what you're doing with our doc. It's important to me because you said you're using Nigerian doctors and AI, right? I'm also curious as to how that data gathering is happening. So I'm hoping that with the work you're doing, and maybe there are other people doing the same thing as well, we hope so, that are able to train this AI with things that are peculiar to us when it comes to healthcare. Yes, health is health, but at the same time, there are issues that are peculiar to our climate, our people, from the kind of food we eat, the kind of weather we interact with, and all that. So hopefully, when we then interact with this AI that you're building, it is very localized, and I can understand that, yes, this AI knows that I ate a man and it will do.
Exactly.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is what can come. So yeah, kudos to you on that, and well done on that.
I would like to ask, is our doc looking for investors?
Yes, please.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
we'll be talking.
for me, I will approach your advocacy very differently. First, I want to say well done. For me, I see a young Nigerian who has refused to allow the system overwhelm him, rather to give back to the system. I mean, you reeled out all the things you've done using this platform, and the truth is that you cannot give back to your society and remain stagnant. You are going to grow, okay, just the way you've grown. And I think it's a lesson for our colleagues who are always thinking that the way out is to japa. Okay, the average health worker now wants to leave, but I hope that to the medical community, they see that barriers can be broken, and to the youth in general to see that we can use our talents, you know, to give back to the country we all say we love. Now you can comfortably criticize, so to speak, because you've added value to this country.
Yeah.
You get, it's not just to always sit down, and I have some friends who have jackpot. I have nothing against jackpot, but when I hear them speak, I wonder what they are like. Zero patriotism to the country. I had to tell one of them, but Nigeria made you a doctor. Forget wherever you are now, whether you are in Canada or you are in Nigeria.
And it's cheaper to be a doctor in Nigeria
made you
than
a doctor.
elsewhere.
And so, well done. That's just that's how I want to approach this, and it should be a lesson and an example to the rest of us.
So, Emeka and Nkechi, all talk and no action makes you a what? A dull boy and girl. So when waiting with the talk for here, change waiting you they see for there. We know say Nagbosa for all of us. So keep it locked, same time, same channel, and let's make it happen together. Till then, it's goodbye from all of us.
Goodbye.